The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Arthur Peter Mutharika, President of the Republic of Malawi, Minister for Defense and Commander-in-Chief of the Malawi Defense Force and the Malawi Police Service. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Arthur Peter Mutharika and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency, Tijani Muhammad Bande, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Dr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to congratulate His Excellency, Tijani Muhammad Bande, for his election as President of the General Assembly for the 74th session. I would like to assure you, Mr. President, my brother, my delegation will support you during this session. I would also like to take the opportunity to commend Her Excellencies, Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa-Garcés, for being the fourth female member, President of the General Assembly. Something we hope will continue in future, in the coming years, in the pursuit of gender parity. I'd like to commend her for the excellent work she did during the last session. Let me also convey my condolences to the government and people of France on the death of former President Jacques Chirac. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Mr. President, let me begin by listening to the voice of silence, the voice of those who cannot speak, but waiting for the actions of this assembly. As we speak now, there are many losing their precious life because we cannot protect them. Many escaping from countries because we cannot protect them. There are many helpless children and women being trafficked and sold like cargo without value. There are many vulnerable children heading families or failing to go to school. As an organization, we have urgent work to do. We are a generation with a place in history. We are a generation with a mission. And let us remember, time has a way of punishing history. If we don't take the right decisions today, our decisions and actions today may return in time to haunt us. The United Nations is an organization with a mission in human history. This organization was founded on three pillars: A, peace and security; B, human rights; 3, development. This is our mission. This is the burden of our generation. It's our turn to do what is right for humankind. It's our time to make a difference to humankind. And the United Nations is our ultimate weapon to make a difference to human existence. No matter what happens, we should never, never lose faith in these organizations. Let us agree with Samantha Power that, quote, whatever its flaws, the United Nations is still the only institution that brings together all the countries of the world. End of quote. Mr. President, this year we have made as an organization determined to fight a common war. We declare war on poverty, declare to end education inequality, declare war on climate change, and declare to fight for the inclusion of minority nations. The world has enough resources to eradicate poverty. We have enough resources to send every child to school. We have enough means to slow down climate change and save the planet. We only need to think as one humanity with one goal and put together our resources. But the trouble with materialism is that it's only 1% of the world controlling 99% of our resources. It is those controlling resources of the planet who are the real decision makers of human fate on this earth. This global inequality in decision making undermines the United Nations' ability to make the world a better place. Poverty eradication remains an elusive objective in sustainable development goals. Unfortunately, for some countries in this assembly, poverty is a leverage for controlling other human beings in other places. Many people of the world struggling in poverty are amazingly hardworking individuals. Many leaders in developing countries strive with the best intentions to improve lives of their people. We wish our people well. Africa is not poor by the will of its people. This is a continent that has suffered the worst history of exploitation, from slavery through colonialism to the aid regime of the last 60 years. History knows us. We have built empires and cities of the West with our blood, sweat, and minerals. Africa has given more resources to the developed world for much more than we ever received in aid or philanthropy. Today, we move to strive to build our economies. The more climate change undermines our economies with disasters and external shocks. And yet, the leading actors of climate change are outside developing countries. As I speak, poverty thrives in the least developed countries. The Sub-Saharan Africa is one of the worst affected regions of the world. This region has more people trapped in poverty than any other part of the world. Africa has a rising population of youth and women. This booming population of youth and women trapped in poverty is a great danger to the world. Women and children are the worst victims of poverty. Poverty is dehumanizing. Poverty is a tragedy of the people. In that quest to survive at any cost, poverty is a breeding ground for radicalization in Africa. A radicalized youth in any part of the world poses a threat to all parts of the world. This is one reason we must collectively act on poverty and act swiftly. Here is a reason we must empower the youth as common front of humanity. We can save the world by empowering the youth and educating the child. The cost of poverty, the cost of a radical youth, and the cost of a child bred by ignorance will always surpass any investment we can do today. Sadly, there are millions of children who cannot access quality education everywhere in the least developed countries. There are many left behind in the digital divide. As a United Nations, we cannot therefore claim to be making progress toward the 23rd agenda if a significant part of the world population is left behind. We need to examine the underlying causes of poverty, take concrete measures to address them with speed. Let us move with speed to empower the youth and women. Let us move with speed to eradicate poverty. Let us promote sustainable and equitable economic growth. We must reduce inequities and create greater opportunities for all. Mr. President, on this account, Malawi has taken pragmatic measures towards reducing poverty in a bid to achieve sustainable development. My government is implementing Malawi Growth and Development Strategy 3. This is an overarching national development framework that targets sustainable development goals. Our progress is satisfying. We are implementing poverty reduction policies and programs. We are implementing social support programs that target ultra poor and vulnerable in the country. We are also providing free access to basic social services, such as health and education. In order to sustain these programs, we have consistently increased budget allocation to the country's key sectors of agriculture, education, health, and social welfare. My government has also developed a national social support program to guard the delivery of social protection services. The program provides a comprehensive social protection response. It offers women and children preventive, protective, and life-changing interventions in multi-sectoral approach. One flagship program in this category is social cash transfer. This intervention targets women, children, and the most vulnerable in our society. This intervention provides a predictable cash flow to cushion vulnerable households. We also have an additional top-up value for school-going learners. This program has taken hopeless people out of poverty, improved school enrollment and retention, and reduced extreme hunger. The program has so far benefited a total of 1.2 million individuals from 80,000 households. These are mostly children and female-headed households. Mr. President, there can never be meaningful development without the inclusion of youth and women. Therefore, my government has established a number of youth-centered programs. These programs are set to drive youth empowerment and are proven results and testimonies of real lives transformed. We are focused on empowering the youth with skills. We have introduced a progressive skills education program for the youth of Malawi who have finished secondary schools. We target empowering the mass of the youth who do not have access to university education. We are empowering the youth with skills to create their own jobs and businesses. We want the youth to be masters of their own destiny. Thus, we are constructing community technical colleges in every part of the country. We have started with a community college in every district. Now we are moving to bring a community college in every constituency. Every constituency will have a secondary school and a community technical college. Our goal is to empower and create equal opportunities for all youth of every part of the country. Our youth empowerment program complement our programs for empowering women. There can never be a society without women. There can never be development without including women. We have stepped up inclusion of women in decision-making. For rural women, we have increased social protection measures that target rural women. We now provide soft loans to rural women for them to invest in small and medium businesses. This initiative now benefits over 4.5 million women. Our goal is to include women in economic activities. Mr. President, the United Nations agreed that education is a human right. Education is a primary responsibility of the state. Every country is doing its best to educate its people. Education creates a human society that understands its problems and equips the people with the capacity to solve their problems. Investing in education is the best way of investing in all other sectors of society. That is why in Malawi, education gets the lion's share of the national budget every year. We acknowledge the support we get from the various stakeholders, including development partners. These include UN agencies and civil society organizations. But we regret that the global commitment on education is now weakening. UNESCO projections warn us that the global community will fail to meet the educational commitments unless there is serious progress over the coming decade. This year, SDG's report informs us that millions of children still out of school. Once enough, not all who attend school are learning. Consequently, many youth cannot participate in a highly complex global economy. These educational gaps also threaten an individual's ability to move out of poverty. Failing to prepare the youth is preparing a generation to fail. But we are the ones failing the global child. The world will pay the heavy cost of breeding poverty and ignorance by failing the child. And let me remind this assembly, poverty and ignorance are the breeding ground for radicalization of the youth, and we will suffer the cost of radicalism. Mr. President, let the world remember its commitment to save the only planet we live. Climate change is a threat. In March this year, Malawi again suffered another devastating national disaster. We were hit by Cyclone Idai together with Mozambique and Zimbabwean brothers. We lost our loved ones, infrastructure damage. Cyclone Idai destroyed many people's lives. Malawi needs over $370 million to recover. My government, in cooperation with the UN country team and the other partners, has so far raised $45 million for immediate response. This has gone into food, temporary shelters, relocation, and medication. But we still had a few deficits that calls for more support from the international community. Mr. President, Malawi plays its role in international peacekeeping with diligence. We are proud to sacrifice our little resources for humanitarian cause of keeping others safe wherever they may be. As a peaceful country, we consider ourselves ambassadors of peace. We are proud that the Malawi Defense Force has always been professional and effective wherever they have gone in UN peacekeeping missions. Our military is the pride of the nation, and we are proud to find our place in the UN family and play our role. It takes us all to make the world a safe place. It takes us all to provide security to the vulnerable and the voiceless. Malawi is understood to be a poor country, but we are testimony that small poor countries can play a significant role in affairs of the United Nations. I repeat what I've said before. There are no small or poor nations in the United Nations. All we are nations of the United Nations. In fact, this organization would be more powerful, more effective, if all participate in the decision-making on security. But for some reason, there are nations that refuse to share power with African nations. In this regard, the United Nations is undemocratic. And yet, the same countries and the UN are preachers of the gospel of democracy in Africa. But Africans are sometimes democratic than some Western countries. Therefore, let me call upon the United Nations to implement the Security Council reforms. Africa must be on the Security Council. Let me repeat, Africa must be on the Security Council. We cannot ignore and marginalize an entire continent of 1.3 billion people. That is unacceptable. We cannot marginalize and repress one third of member nations of this organization. It's a mockery that we meet here to galvanize multilateral efforts while we marginalize and repress other member states. I therefore urge the UN and the P5 in particular to open up the Security Council membership, increase the number of permanent seats with veto powers, and make the UN Security Council a true representative of all members of the United Nations. As Africa will never relent on this position, our position for the good of the United Nations and the global community as a whole. The more we allow a few nations to monopolize power in the Security Council, the more we make the United Nations look undemocratic. This cannot be allowed in this day and age. Let there be change if we want to see the world to change. Mr. President, let me conclude by saying what shall have been my opening remarks. I and my country are proud members of this organization. We are thankful of the role the UN plays in my country. This year, Malawi had an election. I've come in my second term of office. The process was audited by United Nations affiliated network called BDO. This election was unanimously declared free, fair, and credible by the European Union, the African Union, SADC, the Commonwealth, COMESA, and various observer nations. But the opposition, led by the Malawi Congress Party, decided not to accept this very credible election. This is the party that ruled Malawi under a dictatorship for 31 years. This time they went to court, but ignored the court processes and waged a vicious campaign of violence in the disguise of demonstration. Their violence displays a desire for ethnic cleansing, a desire for civil war, an attempt to demolish the economy and to make Malawi an ungovernable state of lawlessness. We responded with peaceful resistance and insisted on the rule of law. We fought violence with peace and fought hate with love. That's what saved Malawi from generating into chaos. We have seen democracy and the Maruro law at its best in Malawi. And Malawi remains a peaceful and stable country that we have always known. Malawi remains a beautiful destination for tourists and investors. Malawi is a beautiful place where you fight to make life better for everyone. I thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Malawi for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the head of state.